Once upon a time, in the days of the Seven Kingdoms, there lived a woman whose name was known in every village, every market, and every palace. Some people loved her. Some people feared her. The poor praised her. The powerful feared her. Children ran to her with smiles. Kings lowered their heads when she entered a room. Her name was Priestess Diana. She was the ruler and protector of the Seven Kingdoms. No king stood above her. No queen stood above her. Her word was law throughout the land. But Priestess Diana was not born into a royal family. She was once a slave. Everybody knew that story. Parents told it to their children. Grandparents told it to their grandchildren. People still spoke about it many years later. How a slave became the most powerful woman in the Seven Kingdoms remained one of the greatest stories ever told. But that story is for another day. Today, we are talking about the woman she became. My name is Patience. Welcome to a Tanologue. One morning, the people of Amara Kingdom woke up to the sound of laughter. Not the laughter of children, not the laughter of villagers. It was the laughter of Priestess Diana. Near a large tree, several village girls were playing together. Among them was Diana. She was laughing, running, joking, playing games with them. Anyone seeing her for the first time would never believe she ruled Seven Kingdoms. One young girl suddenly stopped and looked at Diana. "My priestess, if I catch you, you must buy me roasted corn." The girls burst into laughter. Diana laughed too. "You think you can catch me?" The girl nodded proudly. Before she could move, Diana ran. The girls chased after her. Soon everybody was laughing. Not far away, a group of elderly women sat watching. One of them smiled. "Sometimes I forget she is the priestess." Another woman laughed. "And then somebody angers her." The women immediately became quiet. Everybody knew what that meant. Because Priestess Diana was kind, very kind, but she could also be terrifying. Many years ago, slavery existed in several kingdoms. Families suffered. Children suffered. Parents suffered. Many people believed slavery would never end. Then Diana became priestess, and everything changed. One of the first laws she made was simple. Slavery was forbidden, completely forbidden. Anyone who continued slavery would face her judgment. Former slaves celebrated. The poor celebrated. Many kings obeyed, but not everyone was happy. Many powerful people lost their influence. Many slave traders lost their wealth. Many people secretly hated Diana for what she had done, but nobody could stop her. As the years passed, slavery disappeared from the Seven Kingdoms. Because of that, many people loved Priestess Diana. To them, she was a hero, a savior, a blessing. But not everybody saw her that way. Some people saw something else. They saw a woman who never forgot and never forgave. The man responsible for much of her father's suffering was one example. Many years after Diana became priestess, she found him. Some people expected her to kill him. Others expected her to throw him into prison. Diana did neither. Instead, she cursed him. The man lost his mind. He became a wandering madman. Yet he remained aware of his suffering. He remembered his actions. He remembered what he had done. And he remained that way year after year. Many people believed death would have been kinder. When people spoke about that punishment, fear entered their voices. Not because they thought Diana was weak, but because they realized how far her anger could go. That was the side of Diana many people feared. The side that made rebellious rulers nervous. The side that made powerful people think carefully before doing evil. But there was another side too. A side many people never talked about. As the day continued, Diana walked through Amara Kingdom. People greeted her warmly. Children waved at her. Women smiled at her. Men bowed respectfully. Diana greeted them back. She did not behave like someone above everyone else. She spoke to ordinary people. She listened to them. She laughed with them. That was why so many people loved her. She made them feel seen. She made them feel protected. She made them feel safe. Among all the kingdoms, Amara Kingdom was one of her favorites. King Noah ruled there. He was one of the rulers closest to her. Amara Kingdom had never supported slavery. Neither had Shima Kingdom. Those kingdoms had always valued peace. Because of that, Diana often spent time there. The people of Amara Kingdom were so used to seeing her that many treated her like family. Of course, they still respected her. Nobody forgot she was the priestess. but they were comfortable around her. Comfortable enough to laugh. Comfortable enough to joke. Comfortable enough to be themselves. That was rare. Very few people in the Seven Kingdoms could say that. As evening arrived, Diana sat outside with some elderly women. They shared stories. They laughed. They talked about village life. For a moment, she looked less like the ruler of Seven Kingdoms and more like an ordinary woman enjoying a peaceful evening. But appearances could be deceiving. Everybody knew there was a dark side to Priestess Diana. A side born from pain. A side born from suffering. A side born from memories she could never forget. And whenever that side appeared, even kings became careful. Years ago, some rulers openly challenged her authority. Some laughed when she became priestess. Some looked at her and saw only a slave. But those days were gone. Now rebellion lived in shadows. Now enemies whispered in secret. Now people thought twice before standing against her, because they had learned something important. Priestess Diana was not a woman to be underestimated. Night eventually covered the land. The villages became quiet. The markets closed. The people went asleep. And for the first time that day, Diana was alone. No laughter. No children. No servants. No kings. Just silence. She sat beneath the moonlight and looked toward the stars. Slowly, tears filled her eyes. She missed her parents. She always missed them. It did not matter how many years passed. The pain remained. She was now the most powerful person in the Seven Kingdoms. She had ended slavery. She had changed countless lives. Kings bowed before her. Yet none of that could bring her parents back. A tear rolled down her cheek. She quickly wiped it away. Tomorrow she would smile again. Tomorrow she would laugh again. Tomorrow she would protect the kingdoms again. That was her duty. That was her responsibility. And despite everything, Diana loved being the priestess. For the first time in her life, nobody could control her. For the first time in her life, nobody could treat her like she was nothing. She was powerful. She was respected. She was feared. And she intended to remain that way. After many years of ruling the Seven Kingdoms, Priestess Diana heard troubling news. The news came from Obina Kingdom. At first, she ignored it, not because she did not care, but because kings often exaggerated problems from other kingdoms. However, as the days passed, more reports reached her. People were hungry, farmers were suffering, families were struggling, yet the royal family continued living in luxury. Diana sat quietly one evening in Amara Kingdom. Something did not feel right. King Noah noticed her silence. "My priestess, is something troubling you?" he asked. Diana nodded. "Obina Kingdom." King Noah sighed. "I have heard stories." Diana looked at him. "Stories are not enough." King Noah already knew what she was thinking. "You want to go there yourself." Diana smiled. "You know me too well." King Noah laughed. "Please try not to destroy the kingdom before you return." Diana rolled her eyes. "I make no promises." The next morning, she left. No royal guards. No servants. No royal carriage. No signs that she was the priestess. She dressed like an ordinary village girl and traveled alone. Because whenever rulers heard she was coming, they suddenly became good people. The roads became clean. The people smiled. The rulers lied. Diana wanted the truth. And the truth only appeared when nobody knew she was watching. Several days later, she arrived in Obina Kingdom. The moment she entered the kingdom, something felt wrong. The roads were damaged. The houses looked old. Many villagers looked tired. Children wore torn clothes. Yet expensive decorations could be seen near the palace. Diana frowned. "This is not good." As she walked through the village, she listened carefully. People complained in whispers. Nobody wanted the guards to hear them. "The taxes are too much. We can barely eat. My son was punished for speaking against an elder. The royal family does not care." Diana's face became serious. The more she listened, the angrier she became. But she controlled herself. She had only just arrived. Then she heard shouting. A crowd had gathered nearby. Diana quickly moved closer. An elderly woman was kneeling on the ground. She looked frightened. Standing before her was a young woman dressed in expensive clothing. It was the princess of Obina Kingdom. Beside her stood several guards. The old woman was crying. "Please forgive me, princess." The princess looked annoyed. "You embarrass me." The old woman shook her head. "It was a mistake. I did not care." The princess turned to the guards. "Punish her!" The guards stepped forward. The crowd lowered their heads. Nobody dared speak. Diana's hands slowly tightened. The princess noticed. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Diana stepped forward. What did the old woman do? The entire crowd froze. Some villagers stared at Diana in shock. Had she lost her mind? Nobody questioned the princess. Nobody. The princess looked offended. "What did you say?" Diana remained calm. "I asked what the old woman did." The princess laughed. Then her face became cold. "Who are you to question me?" Diana did not answer. The princess pointed at her. "Punish her too." The crowd gasped. The guards immediately grabbed Diana. At that moment, Diana almost lost control. Her eyes narrowed. Her anger exploded inside her. She wanted to end this nonsense immediately. She wanted to use her powers. She wanted to show the princess exactly who she was. But she stopped herself. She had come to see the truth, and now she was seeing it. The guards pushed her forward. The princess smiled. "Perhaps next time you will learn your place." Diana stared at her. If only the princess knew. The punishment was about to begin. Then suddenly, "Stop!" A young man's voice echoed across the area. Everyone turned. A handsome young man was walking toward them. His face was filled with anger. The guards immediately stepped back. The princess looked surprised. "Tony!" The crowd quickly bowed. Prince Tony had arrived. Tony looked at the old woman. Then he looked at Diana. "What is happening here?" The princess folded her arms. "They challenged me." Tony looked disappointed. "An old woman?" The princess looked away. Tony turned toward the guards. "Release them." The guards hesitated. Tony's voice became firm. "Now." The guards obeyed. The old woman immediately started crying. Tony helped her stand. Then he turned toward Diana. For a moment, their eyes met. Neither of them said anything. Tony looked away first. He sighed. Then he spoke. "You are both coming with me." The princess looked annoyed. "Brother." "No." His voice was calm but firm. The princess remained silent. Tony escorted Diana and the old woman away from the crowd. As they walked, Diana secretly studied him. He had done the right thing. Not because he knew who she was. Not because he wanted a reward. Simply because it was the right thing to do. That was rare. Very rare. Soon they arrived at a small building. Food was brought. Medicine was brought. The old woman was treated with kindness. Tony personally apologized to her. Then he turned toward Diana. "I am sorry for what happened." Diana looked at him. "You are apologizing for something you did not do." Tony smiled sadly. "It happened in my kingdom." Diana did not know why, but she liked that answer. For the first time since arriving in Obina Kingdom, she smiled. A real smile. Tony noticed. And for some reason, he smiled too. Neither of them knew it yet, but that moment would change everything. Because Priestess Diana had planned to stay in Obina Kingdom for only a short time. But after meeting Prince Tony, things were about to become far more complicated. After that day, Diana remained in Obina Kingdom. At first, she planned to leave after a few days. Then a few days became a week, and a week became several weeks. The more time she spent in the kingdom, the more things she discovered. And none of it made her happy. Many of the elders were corrupt. They collected money from poor villagers. They took food from struggling families. They punished people for small mistakes. Yet they lived comfortably while the villagers suffered. Diana saw everything. Every day her anger grew. Many times she wanted to reveal herself. Many times she wanted to punish them immediately. But she stopped herself. She wanted to know everything first. And every day she learned something new. One afternoon, Diana saw a farmer crying beside his farm. His crops had been taken, not by thieves, by the king's officials. The farmer's family would now struggle to eat. That same evening, Diana saw a widow lose her home because she could not pay an unfair tax. The next day, she saw guards punish a young boy simply because he accidentally offended an important elder. The kingdom looked peaceful from the outside, but inside, many people were suffering. Diana hated it, very much. But there was one thing that made her stay longer than she planned. Prince Tony. The two began spending more time together. At first, Tony simply checked on her. He wanted to make sure she was safe. Then they started talking. Then they started walking together. Then they started spending entire afternoons together. Slowly, they became close. Very close. For the first time in a long time, Diana felt relaxed. Tony did not know she was the priestess. To him, she was simply Diana. A kind village girl. Nothing more. And strangely, Diana liked that. For once, nobody was bowing before her. Nobody was calling her my priestess. Nobody was afraid of her. It felt nice. One evening, they sat beside a river watching the sunset. Tony smiled. You know, you're different. Diana raised an eyebrow. Different how? Tony laughed. I don't know. Very helpful answer. Tony laughed harder. Diana found herself laughing too. She had not laughed this much in years. As the weeks passed, the villagers began noticing them together. Soon people started whispering. Some thought they looked good together. Others thought it was impossible. After all, Tony was a prince, and Diana appeared to be an ordinary village girl. But Tony did not care, and Diana pretended not to care, though deep inside, she cared very much. One day, Tony took Diana to a beautiful hill overlooking the kingdom. The view was breathtaking. The wind was gentle. For a moment, everything felt peaceful. Tony looked at her. Diana! The moment she heard her name from his lips, her heart skipped a beat. Nobody ever called her that. Nobody. Only Tony. And she liked hearing it, more than she wanted to admit. Tony smiled. What? Diana quickly looked away. Nothing. Tony laughed. You are blushing. I am not. You are. I am not. Tony laughed again. Diana wanted to be angry. Instead, she smiled. The truth was simple. She liked him. Very much. And that realization frightened her. Priestess Diana feared almost nothing. But these feelings were new, strange, confusing, and completely unexpected. Days later, they walked through the village together. A group of children ran toward them. The children loved Diana. They always wanted to play with her. Soon she was laughing and playing with them. Tony watched from a distance. A smile slowly appeared on his face. He liked seeing her happy. Very much. And in that moment, he realized something. He was in love with her. The realization surprised him. But it also felt right. Because every day he spent with Diana made him admire her more. Her kindness, her courage, her heart, everything. That evening, as they walked home together, neither of them spoke. The silence felt different. Comfortable. Warm. Special. Eventually, Tony stopped walking. Diana stopped too. They looked at each other. For several seconds, neither said anything. Then Tony slowly stepped closer. Diana's heart began racing. For the first time in her life, Priestess Diana did not know what to do. Tony gently touched her hand. Diana! She looked into his eyes. And suddenly, nothing else mattered. Not the kingdom. Not the corruption. Not the anger she carried inside her. Nothing. Only him. Slowly, Tony leaned forward. Diana did not move away. A moment later, they shared their first kiss. It was soft, gentle, and completely unexpected. When they finally pulled apart, neither of them knew what to say. Tony smiled nervously. Diana immediately looked away. Her face was completely red. The mighty priestess of the 7 kingdoms was embarrassed. And Tony could not stop smiling. For the first time in many years, Diana felt something she had never expected to find. Happiness. Real happiness. But while Diana was falling in love, the corruption in Obina Kingdom continued growing worse. And somewhere inside the palace, certain people were beginning to notice how much time the prince was spending with a simple village girl. People were watching. People were talking. And before long, trouble would come looking for Diana. Weeks turned into months, and Diana was still in Obina Kingdom. Every day she told herself she would leave soon. Every day she told herself she would reveal the truth. Every day she told herself she would deal with the corruption. But every day she found herself spending time with Tony instead. The kingdom continued to suffer. Corrupt elders continued stealing from villagers. Unfair taxes continued. People continued living in fear. And every day Diana's anger grew. Many nights she sat alone, looking toward the palace, thinking she could end everything tomorrow. One word, one command. That was all it would take. She was the priestess, the ruler of the 7 kingdoms. Nobody could stop her. Yet she remained. Because of Tony. For the first time in years, Diana was thinking with her heart instead of her anger. and that frightened her. One afternoon, Tony and Diana were walking through the marketplace together. They were laughing, talking, enjoying each other's company. Neither of them noticed they were being watched. From a distance, the princess stared at them. Her face immediately darkened. That girl! She recognized Diana immediately. The same girl who had challenged her months ago. The same girl who had embarrassed her in front of everyone. The princess turned and hurried toward the palace. That evening, the queen received the news. At first, she did not believe it. Then she saw them herself. Tony, her son, walking through the village with a common village girl, laughing, smiling, holding her hand. The queen's face became cold, very cold. This ends now. The next morning, Diana received an invitation to the palace. She already knew who had sent it. She also knew it would not be pleasant. Still, she went. The moment she entered the palace hall, she saw them. The queen, the princess, several royal relatives, and a few elders. Tony was not there. The queen looked Diana up and down. Disgust filled her eyes. So this is the girl. Diana remained calm. The princess crossed her arms. She has been causing trouble since the day she arrived. Diana said nothing. The queen slowly stood up. My son is a prince. Still Diana remained silent. The queen continued. He will marry someone worthy. Silence. He will not marry a common village girl. Diana's eyes narrowed slightly, but she controlled herself. The queen mistook her silence for fear. That was a mistake. You should know your place. Outside, dark clouds slowly gathered. The sky became gray. The wind began to blow. The queen stepped closer. Do you know who we are? Diana looked directly into her eyes. Yes. The queen laughed. Then stay away from my son. A loud thunderclap echoed outside. Boom. The room became silent for a moment. The queen frowned, then continued speaking. You should be grateful he even speaks to you. Another thunderclap exploded across the sky. Boom. Rain began falling outside. Heavy rain. Very heavy rain. The princess looked toward the window. The weather had changed suddenly. The queen ignored it. She was too angry. You are nothing. The rain became stronger. Boom. Lightning flashed across the sky. Several elders exchanged nervous glances. Something felt wrong. Very wrong. Diana remained completely still. But inside, her anger was growing. The queen continued insulting her. Again, and again, and again. Each word made it harder for Diana to remain calm. Not because the insults hurt. She had heard worse. Much worse. But because the queen reminded her of people from her past. People who believed power made them superior. People who treated others like they were worthless. People exactly like the ones she hated. The storm outside became even stronger. Boom. Thunder shook the palace. The princess suddenly looked at Diana. For the first time, fear entered her eyes. Something about Diana felt different. Very different. Then the palace doors suddenly opened. Tony rushed inside. His clothes were wet from the rain. Mother! The queen turned. Tony looked angry. What are you doing? The queen pointed at Diana. I am protecting you. Tony shook his head. No. The queen stared at him. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. The hall became silent. Tony walked directly toward Diana. Then he stood beside her. Not behind her. Beside her. The queen could hardly believe what she was seeing. The princess was equally shocked. Tony looked at his mother. You owe her an apology. The queen's eyes widened. The elders gasped. Nobody spoke to the queen that way. Nobody. The queen's face turned red with anger. You choose her over your own family? Tony answered immediately. I choose what is right. Silence filled the room. Outside, the storm continued. Inside, Diana felt something she had not felt in a very long time. Someone was standing up for her. Not because she was the priestess. Not because he feared her. Not because he wanted power. Simply because he cared about her. And for a brief moment, the storm inside her heart became quieter. But only for a moment. Because while Tony was defending her, Diana had already discovered secrets about the royal family that would shake Obina Kingdom to its foundation. Secrets far worse than she had imagined. Secrets she could no longer ignore. And very soon, the truth would come out. The moment Tony left the palace that day, the queen went straight to King George. She was furious. The princess was furious too. Both of them began speaking at the same time. There is a girl, a common villager. She has turned Tony against us. He is defending her. He is embarrassing the royal family. King George's face became darker with every word. A common villager? He asked. Yes, the queen replied. King George slammed his hand against his throne. Who does she think she is? The princess smiled. Exactly. King George stood up. I will teach her a lesson she will never forget. The queen smiled. The princess smiled. Neither of them knew what was coming. King George pointed at his guards. Bring her to me immediately. The guards bowed. Yes, your majesty. Hours later, Diana was brought before the throne room. Several elders had gathered. Royal guards stood around the hall. The queen was there. The princess was there. Everyone wanted to witness the punishment of the village girl who had dared get close to Prince Tony. The large doors opened. Diana walked inside calmly. King George stared at her. His face was filled with anger. So you are the girl. Diana said nothing. King George stood up. Because of you, my son now disrespects his family. Silence. You have brought shame upon this palace. Silence. You think because Tony likes you, you can do whatever you want. Still Diana remained silent. The king's anger grew. You are nothing. The hall became silent. Everyone expected Diana to be frightened. Instead, she slowly lifted her head. Then she looked directly into King George's eyes. Suddenly, the king's voice disappeared. His mouth moved, but no words came out. The hall froze. King George looked confused. He tried again. Nothing. No sound. The queen's eyes widened. The princess stepped back. The elders looked at one another. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Then Diana finally spoke. Her voice was calm. Very calm. You have spoken enough. The room became silent. The guards immediately rushed toward her. Big mistake. Diana slowly turned her head. The guards suddenly screamed, then dropped their weapons. They could no longer see. Panic filled the hall. The queen gasped. The princess almost fell backwards. Several elders began shaking. For the first time, fear entered the room. Real fear. Diana slowly stepped forward. Nobody dared stop her. Nobody could stop her. King George's eyes widened. Then suddenly his voice returned. My Pri. Before he could finish speaking, his body rose into the air. The entire hall gasped. The king floated above the floor. His feet kicked wildly. Fear covered his face. Now everyone understood. The village girl was never a village girl. The queen fell to her knees. The princess fell to her knees. Several elders followed immediately. Others were too shocked to move. Priestess Diana had been living among them all along. King George began crying. My priestess, please. His voice shook. Forgive me. Diana's eyes remained cold. Years of suffering. Years of corruption. Years of greed. Years of abuse. She had seen everything. And now she was done pretending. You let your people suffer. King George cried harder. My priestess, please. You lived in luxury while children starved. You allowed corruption to spread. The king trembled. You failed your kingdom. The queen began begging. The princess began crying. My priestess, please forgive us. We did not know. But Diana barely heard them. Her anger had finally broken free. 4 months she had controlled it. 4 months she had endured. 4 months she had watched innocent people suffer. Now she was finished waiting. The air itself seemed heavy. Nobody dared move. Nobody dared speak. Then suddenly the palace doors opened. Tony rushed inside. The moment he entered, he stopped. Shock covered his face. The guards, the elders, the queen, the princess, his father floating in the air, and standing before them all, Priestess Diana. For several seconds he simply stared. His mind refused to believe what he was seeing. Diana slowly turned toward him. For the first time since arriving in Obina Kingdom, her heart hurt, because she knew what came next. Tony looked confused. Diana! Slowly she walked toward him. The room remained frozen. Nobody could move. Nobody except them. Tony looked around, then back at Diana. What is happening? Diana reached out and gently touched his forehead. In that moment, understanding filled his mind. Everything. The truth. The village girl. The priestess. The ruler of the 7 kingdoms. the reason she came, the corruption, the suffering, the judgment, and the punishment she was about to deliver. Tony's eyes widened. No! He immediately dropped to his knees. No, please! Diana's face softened slightly. It was the first time since entering the throne room. Please don't kill them. Silence. They are wrong. Tony's voice broke. I know they are wrong. Tears filled his eyes. But please don't kill them. They're still my family. The entire hall watched in shock. The prince was begging for the lives of the very people who had caused so much suffering. Diana looked at him, then at King George, then back at Tony. For a long time she said nothing. Finally she sighed. Because she loved him. She could refuse kings. She could refuse queens. She could refuse entire kingdoms. But refusing Tony was much harder. Slowly, King George descended back to the floor. The king collapsed immediately, crying, shaking, terrified. The queen and princess looked relieved, but they celebrated too early. Diana's voice echoed through the hall. Death is too merciful. Fear returned instantly. King George's face turned pale. You will live. The king started crying again. You will live and experience the suffering your people endured. The hall became silent. No one knew exactly what that meant, but everyone knew it would be terrible. Diana then turned toward the queen, then the princess, then the corrupt elders. The age of your corruption ends today. She stripped them of their titles. She removed their authority. Years of privilege vanished in moments. The royal family was no longer royal. The corrupt elders were no longer important. Everything changed. Then Diana looked toward Tony. The entire room followed her gaze. Tony slowly stood, confused, emotional, heartbroken. Diana! A small smile appeared on her face. The first smile since entering the throne room. You have a good heart. Silence filled the hall. You protected the weak. You defended people who could do nothing for you. You chose what was right. Tears filled Tony's eyes. And then Diana made her decision. The future king of Obina Kingdom. She paused. Will be Prince Tony. The entire hall gasped. The kingdom had a new future. And for the first time in many years, hope returned to Obina Kingdom. Outside the palace, the news spread like wildfire. The village girl was Priestess Diana. The corrupt rulers had fallen. Prince Tony would become king. And all across Obina Kingdom, people celebrated. But while the kingdom celebrated, neither Diana nor Tony knew what this decision would cost them in the future. And that is where today's story ends. But some stories never truly end. They only wait for the next chapter. I'm Patience, and I'll see you in the next story.